This is Six Path Weeb, where legends are rewritten and destiny takes a different path. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we continue the story, What If Naruko Was Born a Senju? Part 2. A world where power flows deeper, bloodlines carry greater weight, and one change reshapes everything you thought you knew. Disclaimer, this content is created purely for entertainment and discussion. I do not own any anime footage used. All rights belong to their respective creators. Now, let's dive into the story. Bah, 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 babbled baby Naruko as she finished her mashed banana, managing to get as much on her cheeks and bib as she did in her mouth. Good girl, Naru-chan, Tsunade said warmly, lifting her from the high chair with a gentle smile. You ate all your banana. Even if half of it ended up everywhere else. Ma, Naruko giggled, reaching up happily as she was picked up. You're a messy little one, aren't you? Tsunade chuckled, brushing a bit of banana from Naruko's cheek. Naruko clapped her tiny hands and beamed proudly. Shizune. Tsunade called. I'm going to change Naru-chan. Could you clean up here? Of course, Tsunade-sama, Shizune replied from the kitchen. As Tsunade gently changed Naruko into clean clothes, she found her thoughts drifting. Life had been quiet this past year. She, Shizune, and little Naruko had been traveling from place to place, staying only a short while in each village. It was a peaceful rhythm, helping people, healing the sick, and caring for the bright, curious child in her arms. Naruko had grown into an energetic little explorer. Ever since she learned to crawl, she was always on the move, reaching for anything that caught her eye. Tsunade and Shizune had learned quickly to keep a close watch, as Naruko had a talent for getting into the most unexpected places. But despite the occasional scare, Naruko's laughter filled their days with warmth. All clean, Tsunade said, lifting Naruko again. There we go, my little sunshine. Naruko squealed happily. Back in the main room, Tsunade sat down and cradled Naruko, offering her a small bottle. Naruko held onto it with both hands, drinking contentedly. Shizune sat nearby, flipping through a medical book, the quiet moment settling gently around them. Suddenly, a figure tumbled in through the open window. Ah! The loud cry startled everyone. The man tripped over his own feet and landed in an awkward heap on the floor. Naruko blinked, then burst into giggles. Tsunade immediately stood, holding Naruko protectively, while Shizune stepped forward, alert. They both looked closer. Tsunade sighed deeply, her expression turning into one of tired disbelief. Of all the people. She muttered. The visitor groaned and sat up, rubbing his head. It was Jiraiya. Ah! Tsunade. Just dropping by, he said, trying to regain his composure. You mean crashing through the window? Tsunade replied flatly. Shizune shook her head but helped him sit properly. Naruko tilted her head curiously at the newcomer, then waved her tiny hand. Bah! Jiraiya's expression softened instantly. Well now, he said, smiling. You must be Naruko. Naruko giggled again, clearly pleased with the attention. Once things settled, Tsunade sat across from him, Naruko in her lap. Why are you here, Jiraiya? She asked. This time, he didn't joke. His expression grew serious. I came with news, he said. Important news. Tsunade straightened slightly, listening carefully. The outside world is watching Konoha closely, he explained. But so far, things are stable. No one knows about Naruko, and that's good. You've done well staying hidden. Tsunade nodded. But there's something else, Jiraiya continued. A group is forming. Quietly. Carefully. They're staying out of sight. But they're dangerous. Shizune looked up from her book, concerned. How dangerous? Tsunade asked. They're made up of powerful rogue ninja, Jiraiya said. And they're working together. Tsunade frowned. That's unusual. Exactly, Jiraiya replied. And that's what worries me. Naruko, unaware of the seriousness of the conversation, reached up and grabbed Tsunade's sleeve, smiling brightly. Tsunade looked down at her, her expression softening. Who's part of this group? She asked. Jiraiya hesitated for a moment. One of them, he said carefully. Is someone we used to know. Tsunade's gaze sharpened. Orochimaru. The room fell quiet. Naruko blinked, then let out a cheerful laugh, as if trying to chase away the heaviness in the air. Tsunade gently held her closer. No matter what challenges lay ahead, one thing was certain. Naruko would grow up surrounded by care, courage, and kindness. Tsunade frowned thoughtfully as she listened. Although she had not been there when Orochimaru's betrayal was revealed by Sarutobi, she had heard about it soon after. Even though she had stepped away from Konoha, the memory still stung. He had once been her friend. "I'm surprised he would be willing to work with others again," Tsunade said quietly. "He always preferred to act alone." "That's true," replied Jiraiya, rubbing his chin. "But perhaps it's simply convenient. Others may be helping him stay hidden. Still, knowing him, he'll likely follow his own path in the end." Tsunade nodded, her expression calm but serious. "So what do they call themselves?" Shizune asked. "And why would such powerful shinobi work together?" "They call themselves the Akatsuki," Jiraiya explained. "They wear dark cloaks with red cloud patterns. As for their purpose, I'm not entirely certain. But I've heard they are searching for Jinchuriki, the ones who carry great-tailed spirits within them." Tsunade instinctively held Naruko a little closer at those words. The tiny girl, Naruko, blinked sleepily in her arms, unaware of the conversation. "Are you sure?" Tsunade asked softly. Jiraiya nodded. "It's best to be cautious. But there is some good news, they don't know who carries the 9 tails. As long as that secret is safe, Naruko should be protected." Tsunade let out a quiet breath, though a small worry still lingered in her heart. "They may not act for some time," Jiraiya continued. "They are still preparing. That gives us time. Time to help Naruko grow strong in her own way." Tsunade looked at him carefully, understanding what he meant. "Jiraiya," she began. "I know," he said gently. "You want to protect her from everything. But Naruko has a bright future ahead of her. She carries the spirit of strong and kind people. When she is ready, we should guide her, so she can protect herself and help others too." Tsunade looked down at Naruko, who had now fallen peacefully asleep. After a quiet moment, she smiled, a soft but determined smile. "Then we will guide her together," Tsunade said. "And we will make sure she grows into someone kind, brave, and happy." Jiraiya smiled warmly, seeing her strength return. Shizune also nodded, silently promising to help in any way she could. That night, the room was calm and quiet. Moonlight filtered softly through the window as Tsunade rested. Suddenly, Naruko let out a small cry from her crib. Tsunade woke immediately and went to her. Gently lifting Naruko, she rocked her in her arms. There, she whispered. "You're safe, little one." Naruko soon calmed, resting her head against Tsunade's shoulder. "I think you might be hungry, my little Naruko," Tsunade said with a fond smile. Just then, the door slid open quietly. Shizune stepped in, holding another Naruko. "I'm sorry, Tsunade," Shizune said softly. "I had taken her to change her earlier and didn't want to wake you." Tsunade blinked. "If that's Naruko," she said slowly. She looked down at her arms. Instead of a baby, she was holding a wooden log. There was a brief pause. Then Tsunade turned toward the window just in time to see a tiny figure, disguised as Naruko, tiptoeing away. The figure froze. Slowly, it turned around with an awkward smile. "Ah. Good evening?" said Jiraiya sheepishly. Tsunade crossed her arms, raising an eyebrow, not angry, but clearly unimpressed. "Jiraiya." The next moment, there was a small puff of dust outside the window as Jiraiya made a very quick and rather clumsy exit. A moment later, his voice drifted back, light-hearted and embarrassed. "Note to self. Never try that again." Inside, Tsunade sighed, but then she laughed softly. Naruko gurgled happily in Shizune's arms, as if she understood it was all just a silly moment. The night returned to peace, filled with quiet warmth, gentle laughter, and the promise of a bright future ahead. The night was quiet and peaceful, wrapped in a soft silver glow from the full moon. Inside a cozy house, Jiraiya stretched lazily, mumbling to himself. "So close. I almost finished my story idea," he sighed dramatically, holding a notebook filled with scribbles. "I was just about to think of the perfect ending." Just then, he felt someone standing behind him. A familiar presence. He slowly turned around and found Tsunade looking at him with a calm but firm expression. "Jiraiya," she said, crossing her arms, "were you supposed to be writing? Or helping around the house?" Jiraiya gulped and gave a sheepish smile. "Both?" Tsunade shook her head, though there was a small smile on her face. "Come on. We all have responsibilities." Jiraiya nodded quickly. Right. Responsibilities. Very important." A little while later, laughter could be heard from the house instead of any shouting. The evening continued peacefully. Several miles away, a young couple sat outside, gazing up at the night sky. "Look," said the woman softly, pointing upward. "A shooting star. Let's make a wish." The man squinted. I'm not sure that's a star." "Then what is it?" she asked. Before he could answer, a distant voice echoed playfully through the air. "Woohoo! I finally remembered my idea." The couple blinked in confusion, then laughed. "Maybe it is a shooting star," the man said. Back at the house, everything had settled into a warm routine over the past month. Jiraiya had decided to stay for a while, helping out where he could and spending time with a very special little girl, Naruko Uzumaki. Naruko was cheerful and curious, with bright eyes and boundless energy. She loved to toddle around the room, giggling as she chased after 3 tiny toads that Jiraiya had gently summoned just for her to play with. They hopped slowly and carefully, as if they understood they had an important job, making Naruko smile. That evening, Tsunade and Shizune returned home after a long day of helping villagers. As soon as Naruko saw them, her face lit up. "Mama!" she called out, waddling quickly toward Tsunade. Tsunade froze in surprise for just a moment before kneeling down and lifting Naruko into her arms. "What did you say, Naruko-chan?" she asked gently. "Mama," Naruko repeated, smiling proudly. Tsunade hugged her tightly, her eyes shining with happiness. "That's wonderful. You're growing so fast." Shizune knelt beside them, grinning. "Naruko, can you say auntie?" Naruko tilted her head, thinking hard. "Nei-chan." Shizune laughed. "I'll take it." Jiraiya walked over, clearly excited. "Hey, Naruko, what about me? Do you know who I am?" Naruko looked at him carefully, then smiled mischievously. "Funny man." Shizune giggled, and Tsunade chuckled warmly. Jiraiya blinked, then laughed. "Well, I suppose that's not wrong." Naruko clapped her hands happily, clearly pleased with herself. The house filled with warmth and laughter as the evening went on. Tsunade carried Naruko into the kitchen, Shizune following close behind, while Jiraiya sat down with his notebook again. This time, he smiled as he began to write. "Maybe," he said softly, "the best stories aren't about grand adventures, but about moments like these." And in that cozy home, under the quiet glow of the moon, little Naruko continued to grow, surrounded by care, laughter, and love. 1 month later, things in the village had settled into a gentle rhythm. On this particular afternoon, Jiraiya was staying at Tsunade's house, keeping an eye on little Naruko. Tsunade and Shizune had gone to help a farmer's daughter who wasn't feeling well, and they trusted Jiraiya to watch over the cheerful child. Naruko, with her bright eyes and tiny whisker-like marks on her cheeks, sat happily nearby, playing with a soft cloth toy. She giggled every now and then, filling the quiet house with warmth. Jiraiya, meanwhile, sat at a table with a brush and paper, trying to write. He tapped the brush against his chin. Nothing is coming to mind today," he muttered. After a while, he stretched and stood up. A walk might help. Fresh air always brings good ideas. Carefully, he picked up Naruko. "Come along, Naruko. Let's explore the village." Naruko clapped her tiny hands in delight. As they walked through the streets, villagers smiled warmly at them. A few women and children stopped to greet them. "Oh, what a sweet little girl," one woman said kindly. "She's adorable," another added, waving gently at Naruko. Naruko blinked curiously at all the friendly faces. Then she smiled wide and reached out her small hand, as if to greet everyone at once. Her cheerful nature made people laugh softly. Jiraiya chuckled. "She does have a way of making everyone happy, doesn't she?" They continued walking until they reached a quiet area near the hot springs. The evening light gave everything a golden glow, and the air felt calm and peaceful. Naruko wiggled in Jiraiya's arms, looking around with interest. "Oh. You want something fun, do you?" Jiraiya said thoughtfully. With a small motion, he summoned a tiny toad. The little creature hopped gently onto his shoulder. Naruko's eyes widened with wonder. "Ta!" she chirped happily, reaching out. The toad hopped closer, and Naruko carefully held it in her tiny hands. She hugged it gently, giggling as it made soft croaking sounds. The nearby villagers watched with fond smiles. "She's so gentle," someone whispered. Naruko looked up at Jiraiya and laughed, clearly enjoying herself. Jiraiya smiled back, pleased to see her so happy. At that moment, Tsunade and Shizune were returning from their trip. They had finished helping the farmer's daughter and decided to head home. As they approached, they spotted Jiraiya and Naruko surrounded by friendly villagers. Tsunade crossed her arms, raising an eyebrow, not in anger, but with a knowing look. "Jiraiya!" she called. Jiraiya turned and immediately straightened up. "Ah! Tsunade! You're back!" Shizune smiled softly when she saw Naruko. "She looks like she's having fun." Naruko waved her tiny hand and made a happy sound. "Eh." Tsunade stepped closer and gently took Naruko into her arms. "Did you behave?" she asked softly. Naruko responded with a cheerful giggle, still holding the little toad. "I see you made a new friend," Tsunade said with a faint smile. Jiraiya rubbed the back of his head. "We just went for a walk. She enjoyed meeting everyone." Tsunade looked at him carefully, then sighed. "Next time, let me know before you go wandering off." Yes, of course," Jiraiya said quickly. Shizune laughed lightly. "It's getting late. We should head home." Back at the house, the evening settled into a calm routine. Shizune prepared a simple meal while Tsunade rocked Naruko gently. Naruko yawned, her tiny eyes growing sleepy. "She must be tired," Shizune said. Tsunade nodded. "It's been a busy day." Jiraiya stood nearby, watching quietly. "She really brings a lot of joy, doesn't she?" Tsunade smiled softly. "She does." Naruko, now half asleep, clutched the tiny toad gently as she rested against Tsunade. "Good night, Naruko," Tsunade whispered. Naruko gave a soft, sleepy sound, safe and content. And as the lights dimmed, the house grew peaceful, filled with warmth, care, and quiet happiness. Tsunade paused, the small coin resting lightly between her fingers. She glanced down at her daughter and smiled warmly. "I was thinking of trying one of these machines," she said gently. Little Naruko tilted her head, her bright eyes full of curiosity. "Does it help people?" she asked. Tsunade chuckled softly. "Not really, Naru-chan. It's more of a game of chance. Sometimes people win, but most of the time, they don't." Naruko thought about that for a moment, then looked up at her mother again. "Then, maybe we can play a different game? One where we always win together?" Tsunade blinked, surprised for a moment, then her expression softened. She closed her hand around the coin and slipped it into her pocket. "You know what?" she said, placing a gentle hand on Naruko's head. "That sounds like a much better idea." Naruko beamed, her golden hair catching the light as she bounced on her toes. "Can we go to the park, Kachan? I saw a big tree there earlier." "A tree, huh?" Tsunade said with a playful grin. "I wonder if someone has been practicing climbing trees today." Naruko giggled. "Maybe just a little." They left the casino together, stepping back into the warm sunlight. The town felt lively and cheerful, with soft chatter in the air and the scent of sweet treats drifting from nearby shops. When they reached the park, Naruko ran ahead, stopping in front of a tall, sturdy tree. She placed her small hands on its trunk and looked back at Tsunade. "Watch me, Kachan." Carefully, Naruko focused, just like she had been taught. She gathered her chakra and guided it gently to her feet. Step by step, she walked up the tree, steady and determined. Tsunade watched with quiet pride. Naruko's balance was remarkable, and her control was as natural as breathing. But what made Tsunade happiest wasn't just her skill, it was the joy on her daughter's face. Halfway up, Naruko paused and looked down. "Kachan. It feels like I'm walking on the sky." Tsunade laughed softly. "That's because you're doing it right." Naruko climbed a little higher, then carefully made her way back down. When her feet touched the ground, she threw her arms up in triumph. "I did it again." "Yes, you did," Tsunade said, kneeling to give her a warm hug. "And you're getting better every day." Naruko hugged her back tightly. "It's fun when you're watching." They spent the rest of the afternoon in the park, talking, laughing, and sharing quiet moments under the shade of the tree. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and pink, Naruko leaned against Tsunade's side. "Kachan?" she said sleepily. "Yes, Naru-chan?" "Today was the best day." Tsunade smiled and gently brushed a strand of hair from Naruko's face. "Every day with you is the best day." And as the evening breeze rustled the leaves above them, mother and daughter sat together, peaceful and content, ready for many more bright adventures to come. "I'm just playing a game that grown-ups play for fun," replied Tsunade with a small smile. Can I play? Asked Naruko, licking her ice pop and looking curious. At first, Tsunade almost said no. She knew Shizune would not approve. But then she thought that letting Naruko try just once, like a simple game at a festival, wouldn't do any harm. Alright, Naru-chan, you can have one try, Tsunade said gently. Naruko nodded happily. Tsunade showed her where to place the coin and lifted her up so she could reach the lever. Naruko pulled it with excitement. The colorful reel spun and slowed. One gold coin. Then another. And then a third. Lights sparkled, bells chimed, and coins began to pour out. Naru-chan, you won, Tsunade exclaimed in surprise. I did? Yay! Naruko cheered. Can I try again? Tsunade hesitated, then chuckled. Well, one more couldn't hurt. But Naruko's luck seemed to shine brighter each time. Again and again, she played, and again, she won. Tsunade watched in amazement. My little Naru-chan is unbelievably lucky, she murmured, half amused, half astonished. After a while, Tsunade suggested, how about we try another game? Okay, Naruko agreed eagerly. They exchanged the coins for colorful tokens and moved to a table where Naruko could roll dice. Tsunade explained the rules in a simple way, making it feel more like a fun guessing game than anything complicated. Naruko tossed the dice with a giggle, and just like before, everything went her way. Tsunade laughed and hugged her tightly. You're amazing, Naru-chan. Naruko squirmed a little in the hug but smiled brightly. Soon, Tsunade decided to try one last game. Alright, Naru-chan, she said, kneeling beside her, just tell me a number you like, and we'll go with it. Naruko thought carefully. But just then. Sensei. Tsunade froze. Shizune had arrived, holding her shopping bags, with Tauntaun beside her. Sensei, what is going on here? Shizune asked, clearly upset. Tsunade laughed nervously. Oh, Shizune. It's not what it looks like. We were just having a little fun after training. Oink. Tauntaun added, as if agreeing. Before Shizune could respond, the game host announced, all bets are closed. Naruko had already pointed at a number. I picked that one, Kachan, she said proudly. Tsunade blinked. Naru-chan, you did? The wheel spun. Round and round it went. Shizune covered her eyes. I can't watch. Tsunade held her breath. Naruko simply watched, smiling. The wheel slowed. Tick. 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 And then. It's a match. The host announced cheerfully. Tsunade gasped, then laughed with joy and scooped Naruko into another big hug. You did it again, Naru-chan. Shizune peeked through her fingers, stunned. She really won? After everything settled down, the three of them walked home together. Tsunade carried the winnings safely, while Naruko skipped happily beside them. Once they arrived, Shizune crossed her arms. Sensei, no more taking Naruko to places like that, she said firmly. Games are fine, but only the kind meant for children. Tsunade sighed but nodded. All right. Naruko looked up at them both and smiled. Can we play games at home next time? Shizune smiled softly. That sounds perfect. Tsunade chuckled. Yes, Naru-chan. Games at home it is. And that evening, instead of bright lights and spinning wheels, their home was filled with laughter, simple games, and warm happiness, the kind that didn't need luck at all. Konoha, the next day. The morning sun warmed the windows of the Hokage's office in the peaceful village of Konohagakure. The third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, sat comfortably at his desk, enjoying a rare quiet moment with a book written by his old friend Jiraiya. Suddenly, poof! A tiny slug appeared on his desk, carrying a scroll. Greetings, Hokage-sama, the slug said politely. I bring a message from Shizune. Hiruzen adjusted his glasses. And what might that message be? She asks that the money in this scroll be deposited into the Namikaze family account. How much money? He asked calmly. 720 million ryo. The Hokage blinked. He stood up. He sat back down. Then he stood up again. 720 million ryo? He exclaimed. The slug nodded gently. Young Naruko won it while visiting a casino with Lady Tsunade. Hiruzen stared in astonishment. A 5-year-old girl winning such an amount sounded unbelievable. Yet something about Naruko made the impossible feel possible. He sighed, though a small smile crept onto his face. It seems Naruko has a very special kind of luck. 1 month later. In a quiet home far from the busy streets, Tsunade sat reading a medical book. It was her birthday, though she hadn't expected much celebration. Only Shizune had remembered. Tsunade turned a page and sighed softly. Then, Kachan! Kachan! Where are you? Called a cheerful voice. I'm here, Naruko, Tsunade replied. A small girl with bright eyes and golden hair rushed into the room. This was Naruko Uzumaki, full of energy and warmth. In her hands, she carried a tiny bonsai tree. Happy birthday, Naruko said, holding it out proudly. Tsunade blinked in surprise. The little tree was beautiful, with delicate pink blossoms like a miniature cherry tree. Oh, Naruko, Tsunade whispered, her eyes shining. She pulled Naruko into a warm hug. This is the best gift I've ever received. Naruko giggled softly. I'm glad you like it, Kachan. After placing the bonsai by the window, Tsunade looked at her curiously. Who helped you pick this? Shizune Nei-chan told me it was your birthday, Naruko said. But I made the gift myself. You made it? Tsunade raised an eyebrow gently. Naruko, that takes years. Naruko shook her head, smiling. I didn't just make it. I grew it. Tsunade paused, unsure what to say. Naruko stepped closer to the plant and placed her small hands near its leaves. The blossoms shimmered faintly, as if touched by sunlight even indoors. I just wished really hard for something beautiful for you, she explained. And I took care of it every day. Tsunade's expression softened. Whether it was patience, love, or something wonderfully mysterious, Naruko had created something truly special. She knelt beside her and smiled. Then it's not just a tree. It's a piece of your kindness. Naruko beamed. And in that quiet room, with sunlight dancing on pink petals, Tsunade felt that this birthday was one she would never forget. Naru-chan, I know full well that you can't grow a tree like that in just 1 week, Tsunade said, frowning. She did not like the idea of her daughter telling an untruth. But I did, Kachan, I really did. Naruko replied earnestly. She placed her hands together, trying to explain. I worked on it every day after I bought the seeds from the flower lady with my pocket money. It finally worked today, so I wanted to show you. Tsunade crossed her arms, though her eyes softened just a little. Then show me, Naru-chan. Naruko nodded quickly and led her outside. She pulled a small seed packet from her shorts pocket and carefully dug a tiny hole in the ground. With great care, she placed a seed inside and covered it with soil. Then she knelt down and held her hands gently over the spot. She closed her eyes, focusing with all her heart. A soft glow seemed to shimmer around her fingers. Slowly, a tiny sprout peeked out from the soil. Tsunade's eyes widened. The sprout stretched upward, growing into a slender stem. Leaves unfolded like little green fans, and delicate branches formed. Before long, a beautiful miniature tree stood where there had only been soil moments before, a graceful cherry blossom bonsai, its petals pale and lovely. Naruko opened her eyes and smiled proudly. See, Kachan? I told you. And Naru-chan, Tsunade whispered, amazed. How did you do that? Naruko tilted her head. Shizune Nei-chan told me about great-grandfather Hashirama and how he could grow trees using his chakra. I tried for days, but it didn't work at first. So I thought maybe I just needed to practice more, and use real seeds too. And then today. It worked. She beamed, clearly happy simply because she could share something special. Tsunade looked at the little tree again, her thoughts racing, but she gently placed a hand on Naruko's head. That's a wonderful gift, Naru-chan, she said warmly. Thank you. Naruko's smile grew even brighter. And how about we celebrate with a nice bowl of ramen? Tsunade added. Ramen. Naruko cheered, bouncing with excitement. As they headed inside, Tsunade added softly, let's keep this little trick between us for now, alright? Naruko nodded. Okay. A few days later, Tsunade called upon an old friend for advice. Not long after, a familiar voice rang out as someone entered through the window in a puff of smoke. Behold! The great and legendary Haya, Uro-sennin. Naruko called cheerfully. The dramatic entrance ended rather suddenly as Jiraiya lost his balance and toppled forward with a soft thud. For a moment, there was silence, then laughter filled the room. I told you, kid. Don't call me that, Jiraiya said, rubbing his head. Naruko giggled. But you said it yourself. Tsunade chuckled, and even Shizune covered her smile while Tonton gave a happy little oink. Jiraiya sighed, then smiled despite himself. All right. What's so important that you called me here, Tsunade? Tsunade glanced at Naruko. Naru-chan, can you show him what you showed me? Okay, Naruko said. They all stepped outside. Naruko repeated what she had done before, planting a seed, focusing her chakra, and patiently guiding its growth. Once again, a small tree blossomed before their eyes. Jiraiya blinked in surprise, then leaned closer, studying the tree with great interest. That's quite something, he said gently. Naruko smiled, unaware of how unusual her gift was. To her, it simply felt like helping something grow. Naru-chan, Tsunade said kindly, why don't you go play with Tonton for a while? Okay. Come on, Tonton. Naruko called. Tonton happily followed as Naruko ran off, her laughter light and carefree. Tsunade and Jiraiya watched her go. After a quiet moment, Jiraiya spoke in a thoughtful tone. She's special, isn't she? Tsunade nodded. Yes. But more than anything, she's still just a child. Jiraiya smiled softly. Then let's make sure she gets to stay that way. They both looked toward the garden, where Naruko was playing, her laughter mingling with the gentle rustle of leaves. Nearby, the little bonsai tree swayed in the breeze, strong, bright, and full of life, just like her. Tsunade folded her arms thoughtfully, her golden eyes soft but serious. Shizune's question lingered in the quiet room like a drifting leaf. So what do we do now? Shizune asked again, her voice gentle but worried. Jiraiya smiled, though there was a calm wisdom behind it rather than concern. We do what we've always done, he said. We guide her, protect her, and most importantly, help her grow into her own strength. Naruko, Tsunade murmured, saying the name with a quiet warmth. She's always been full of surprises. Shizune nodded. But this Makuten ability. It's so rare. And she doesn't even fully understand it yet. That's exactly why we must teach her, Tsunade replied. Not just how to use it, but how to trust herself. Jiraiya chuckled softly. If there's one thing I know about Naruko, it's that she has a strong heart. Stronger than any power she carries. At that moment, outside the window, the early morning sun began to rise, painting the sky in soft shades of gold and pink. In the training field nearby, a young girl with bright eyes and boundless energy stood barefoot on the grass. Naruko. She held out her hands, concentrating deeply. At first, nothing happened. Then, ever so gently, a tiny green sprout peeked through the soil beneath her feet. Her face lit up with pure joy. It worked, she said, laughing. I did it. The small plant wiggled slightly, as if responding to her happiness. Naruko knelt beside it, careful and curious. Don't worry, she whispered kindly to the sprout. I'll take good care of you. From a distance, Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Shizune watched quietly. She's not afraid, Shizune said softly. No, Tsunade agreed, a small smile forming. She never has been. Jiraiya crossed his arms, clearly pleased. That's what makes her special. She doesn't see this power as something scary. She sees it as something she can nurture. Naruko stood up again, brushing off her knees. She closed her eyes once more, focusing harder this time. Slowly, more tiny shoots appeared, forming a small circle of greenery around her. It wasn't grand or overwhelming. It was simple. Gentle. Alive. Naruko opened her eyes and grinned. I'm going to get even better, she said to herself. I'll make the most amazing forest ever. Her determination wasn't about power or greatness. It was about growth, kindness, and believing in herself. Tsunade let out a soft breath. We were worried about what this ability might bring, she said. But maybe. It's bringing exactly what she needs. A chance, Jiraiya added, to create something beautiful. Shizune smiled. And we'll be right here to help her. As the sun climbed higher, Naruko continued practicing, her laughter mixing with the rustling of new leaves. The world around her didn't feel dangerous or uncertain. It felt full of possibility. And with every small plant she grew, Naruko wasn't just learning a rare ability, she was learning who she wanted to be. Someone who helps things grow. The afternoon sun bathed the quiet training grounds in a warm, golden glow. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves, carrying with it the soft laughter of a young girl playing nearby. Naruko giggled as she chased Tonton across the grass, her bright spirit shining through every step. She had no idea that, just a short distance away, Three adults were having a very serious conversation about her future. "We have to increase and speed up Naruko's training more than ever now," said Jiraiya, his voice calm but firm. "In a few years, she will need to be as strong as she can be to face whatever challenges come her way." Shizune folded her hands thoughtfully. "Should we inform the third Hokage about Naruko having Makuten?" Jiraiya shook his head gently. "No, it's better to keep this quiet for now. The fewer people who know, the safer it will be. When Naruko is ready, she can reveal her abilities herself." Tsunade crossed her arms, her expression a mix of concern and determination. "Do we really have to tell the village at all? Can't we just keep it a secret?" "I wish we could," Jiraiya replied kindly, "but Naruko needs proper guidance to truly understand and control her abilities. We can help her, but there are limits to what we know." Tsunade sighed, glancing over at Naruko, who was now gently patting Tauntaun and laughing with pure joy. "But how will she learn? She's the only one with this ability now." Jiraiya paused for a moment before answering. "There is one other person who can help." Tsunade blinked in surprise. "What do you mean? My grandfather was the only one known for Makuten." "There is someone else," Jiraiya said softly. "His name is Tenzo. He's grown into a skilled and dependable shinobi, and he has experience with Makuten techniques. He may not match your grandfather's strength, but he understands the foundation." Shizune's eyes lit up slightly. "Then he could guide Naruko?" "Yes," Jiraiya nodded. "With his help, Naruko can learn to use her abilities safely and confidently. And who knows? She may grow even stronger in her own unique way." Tsunade looked back at Naruko, her heart softening. The little girl was now lying on the grass, watching the clouds drift by, completely carefree. "I just want her to be happy," Tsunade said quietly. "To grow up smiling like this." "And she will," Jiraiya replied reassuringly. "Strength doesn't take away happiness, it helps protect it." Shizune smiled warmly. "We'll all help her. She won't be alone." Tsunade nodded, her resolve returning. "Then it's settled. We begin her training tomorrow. Today, she gets to just be a child." The three of them fell silent, watching Naruko as she laughed and pointed at the sky, telling Tauntaun about the shapes she imagined in the clouds. In that peaceful moment, it wasn't about training or responsibilities. It was about a bright, cheerful girl with a big heart, and the people who cared deeply about helping her grow into the best version of herself. And tomorrow, her journey would begin. 2 months later. Ever since Naruko had shared her special gift with Tsunade and Jiraiya, her days had become brighter, busier, and full of learning. She had discovered that she carried the gentle and powerful Makuten ability from her great-grandfather, and everyone was eager to help her grow in her own time. Tsunade guided Naruko with patience and care. Together, they practiced chakra control in creative ways. Naruko could now walk across the surface of water as if it were a quiet pond in a dream, and she balanced tiny objects on her fingertips with a steady smile. Tsunade also helped her build strength through playful exercises, running through open fields, lifting small weights, and turning every lesson into something that felt like a game. Shizune was always nearby, offering gentle encouragement. She taught Naruko how to aim carefully and throw tools like senbon and shuriken with focus and precision. Just as importantly, Shizune helped her read stories and practice writing, making sure Naruko's mind grew just as strong as her skills. One day, she hoped Naruko would also learn the art of healing, so she could care for herself and others. Meanwhile, Jiraiya had a different plan. He believed that strong foundations made the brightest futures, so he decided to teach Naruko the basic jutsu first: transformations, quick movements, and clever substitutions. When you truly understand the basics, he often said, you can do amazing things. 2 months passed in this warm rhythm of learning and laughter. Then came a very special day, Naruko's 6th birthday. That morning, Jiraiya arrived at the house, expecting to begin training. Instead, he found the rooms filled with the cheerful signs of a celebration. Wrapping paper, small decorations, and the sweet feeling of a day meant just for joy. Inside, Tsunade and Shizune were tidying up, smiling as they worked. "She's in the backyard," Shizune said, playing with her new gifts. When Jiraiya stepped outside, he saw Naruko running across the grass, laughing as she played a game of ninja with Tauntaun. She wore a small ninja mask, held a toy kunai in one hand, and carried a soft ninja teddy in the other. Her bright energy seemed to fill the entire yard. "Hey there! Happy birthday!" Jiraiya called out with a grin. Naruko turned, her eyes lighting up as she spotted him. She pulled off her mask and ran over quickly. "Hi, Uro-sennin," she said cheerfully. Jiraiya blinked, sighed, and then shook his head with a small smile. I keep telling you not to call me that. But it's fun, Naruko replied, giggling. Jiraiya crossed his arms, pretending to be serious, though his eyes softened. I came to tell you something important. I'll be staying here for a while to help with your training. Naruko's face brightened even more. Really? What are you going to teach me? I'm going to teach you jutsu, he said. Her excitement bubbled over instantly. Wow! Will I learn big tree jutsu like my great-grandfather? Or amazing water techniques? Or something super flashy? Jiraiya chuckled. Not just yet. We'll start with the basics, transformations, quick movement, and clever tricks. Master those, and you'll be ready for anything. Naruko paused, thinking about it. Then she smiled again, her earlier excitement returning in a softer, determined way. Okay. I'll do my best. Good, Jiraiya said. But not today. Today is your birthday, so you get to rest and have fun. Naruko nodded happily. And, he added, reaching into his robe, I brought you something. He handed her a small, neatly wrapped package. Naruko carefully opened it, her eyes shining with curiosity. Thank you, she said warmly, holding the gift close. You're welcome, Jiraiya replied. Enjoy your day. We'll start training tomorrow. With that, he waved and headed off, leaving Naruko standing in the sunshine. She looked down at her present, then back at the yard where Tauntaun waited for her to continue their game. With a bright laugh, Naruko ran back across the grass, ready to play, learn, and grow, one joyful step at a time. 10 minutes later in town. Jiraiya stood in a quiet alley near the town's hot spring, tapping his foot as he waited. He was supposed to meet someone who had promised to help him gather ideas for a new story. Soon, a young man with short brown hair and kind eyes hurried out of the entrance and jogged over. He carried a small stack of papers. Did you get them? Jiraiya asked eagerly. Yes, the young man replied, catching his breath. I made quick sketches of people enjoying the hot spring, families relaxing, friends laughing. I almost got caught drawing a few times. Jiraiya took the sketches and flipped through them. They showed cheerful scenes, people chatting, children splashing water gently, and elders resting peacefully. Jiraiya smiled thoughtfully. These will be great inspiration, he said. The young man cleared his throat. I believe you owe me something, Jiraiya-sama. You're right, Jiraiya said, handing over a neatly wrapped package. The young man opened it quickly, and blinked in confusion. Is this a book? He asked. Jiraiya leaned closer and froze. The cover read, The Tale of the Utterly Gutsy Shinobi. Jiraiya's eyes widened. Wait. If that's here, then the book I gave Naru, oh no. Without another word, he grabbed the book back and dashed off at incredible speed, leaving the young man calling after him in confusion. Several minutes later at Tsunade's home. Inside her cozy home, Tsunade was settling down for a short rest. Shizune was tidying up nearby, while Tauntaun the little pig lay comfortably by the chair. Suddenly, a cheerful voice called out, Kachan. Where are you? A bright-eyed girl with golden hair, Naruko, ran into the room holding a book. What's wrong, Naru-chan? Tsunade asked gently. Jiraiya-sensei gave me this for my birthday, Naruko said. But it has lots of big words I don't understand. Can you read it with me? Of course, Tsunade smiled, lifting Naruko onto her lap. She opened the book and began reading aloud. After a few lines, she paused. The story wasn't harmful, but it was far too complex and confusing for a child, filled with difficult language and themes Naruko wasn't ready for. Tsunade closed the book softly. This one might be a bit too advanced right now, she said kindly. How about we find a better story to enjoy together? Naruko tilted her head. Oh. Okay. Maybe one with more adventures? Exactly, Tsunade said with a warm smile. Just then, the door burst open and Jiraiya rushed in, slightly out of breath. Naruko. I gave you the wrong bow, he stopped mid-sentence when he saw Tsunade holding the book. Slowly, Tsunade turned toward him. Her smile was calm, but her eyes clearly said she expected an explanation. Jiraiya gulped. I may have mixed up the books, he admitted sheepishly. Naruko looked between them, curious but not worried. Tsunade sighed, then shook her head. Jiraiya, you really need to be more careful. I know, he said quickly. I'll make it right. Tsunade nodded toward Shizune. Shizune, could you take Naruko into town for a bit? Maybe find her a nice storybook. Of course, Shizune replied with a smile. Naruko hopped down happily. Can we get one with brave heroes and fun adventures? Absolutely, Shizune said, taking her hand. As they left, Naruko waved. Bye, Jiraiya-sensei. Don't forget my new book. I won't. He promised. Once the door closed, Jiraiya turned back to Tsunade. I'll fix this, he said earnestly. Tsunade crossed her arms, but her expression softened just a little. You'd better. Outside, Naruko skipped along beside Shizune, already imagining the exciting stories she would soon read, stories filled with courage, friendship, and bright new adventures. When Tsunade finished speaking, Shizune tilted her head with a puzzled expression, clearly unsure what Tsunade meant at first. Tsunade calmly raised a well-worn book titled Icha Icha Paradise, and in that moment, understanding lit up Shizune's face. She let out a small sigh and turned her gaze toward Jiraiya, who suddenly found something very interesting about the ceiling. Shizune's expression became stern, not unkind, but clearly disappointed in his mischievous habits and his tendency to set a bad example for young Naruko. After holding that look for a moment, Shizune softened and turned to Naruko, who had been watching everything with wide, curious eyes. Naruko-chan, how about you and I go downtown and have some ramen at the restaurant? Shizune asked warmly. Naruko's face immediately brightened with joy. Ramen, ramen. She cheered happily. She adored ramen, though her mother Tsunade always reminded her to enjoy it in moderation so she could grow up strong and healthy. Just as Naruko was about to leave, she paused and turned back. Kachan, Uro-sennin, aren't you coming with us? Jiraiya, sensing an opportunity to escape the awkward situation, quickly nodded. Of course, Naruko. And I'll treat you all to ramen. But before he could take a single step, Tsunade gently but firmly held him by the collar, stopping him in place with surprising ease. Not so fast, Tsunade said with a knowing smile. You and I are going to have a little talk first. Think of it as a special lesson in responsibility. Jiraiya blinked nervously. Lesson? Shizune sighed, though she couldn't help but look a little amused. It's time you helped out properly at the clinic and wrote some sincere apology notes for your antics. Jiraiya froze. Apology notes? Yes, Tsunade replied firmly but not unkindly. And afterward, you can join us for ramen, if you behave. Naruko waved enthusiastically. We'll save you a seat, Uro-sennin. That gave Jiraiya just enough hope to stop his dramatic pleading. Ramen. I can do that. I can definitely do that. Tsunade released him, and the group slowly relaxed as the tension melted away. Even Tonton trotted up happily, letting out a cheerful oink as she followed Naruko and Shizune toward town. As they walked away, Naruko looked back and called out brightly, Have fun, Kachan. Tsunade smiled. We will, Naruko-chan. Don't eat all the ramen before we arrive. With that, Naruko, Shizune, and Tonton headed into town, sharing laughter and excitement, while Jiraiya stayed behind with Tsunade, already beginning his lesson, determined this time to make things right so he could enjoy ramen with everyone later. And just like that, it became another warm and lively day in their little family, full of learning, laughter, and kindness. Dear YouTube family. That's all for now. Thank you for watching and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the content, please like, share, and subscribe to stay tuned for more. Until next time. 6 Path Weeb.